We live in a world that often feels chaotic, uncertain, and full of distractions. We're constantly pulled in 1,000 directions by work, relationships, technology, and our endless to-do lists. But every once in a while, something shifts within us. A whisper from somewhere deep inside calls us to explore the bigger questions. Why are we here? What's the meaning of life? What does it really mean to be awake, to be alive in the truest sense? The journey of spiritual awakening is not a smooth one. It's filled with challenges, trials, and tribulations. And these are not just random difficulties, they are tests placed in our path to help us grow, to help us awaken to our highest potential. God, or the universe, or whatever name resonates with you, gives us these tests to strip away all that is false, all that is ego-driven, and reveal our true selves. But these tests are not meant to break us, they are meant to forge us into something stronger, something more enlightened.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
The first of these tests often comes in the form of loss. This could be the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, or the loss of something we deeply identified with. When we lose something we hold dear, it feels like the whole world has collapsed. Why would God take this from me? We wonder. But if we look deeper, we might start to realize that this loss is not a punishment, it's a gift. It's an opportunity to detach from what we thought we needed, to strip away the layers of identity that we've built around ourselves. Who are you without your job? Without your partner? Without your possessions? This is the question that loss forces us to confront. And when we sit with that question, when we allow ourselves to feel the grief, the emptiness, the uncertainty, something magical begins to happen. We start to see that we are not defined by these external things. We are something much deeper, much more eternal. We begin to realize that true security, true peace, comes not from holding on to things, but from letting go. And that's the first test of spiritual awakening, learning to let go of what you thought you needed, so that you can discover what you truly are. But just when we think we've passed that test, life throws another one at us: isolation. This is the second of the hardest tests God gives us. You might find yourself feeling completely alone, even when you're surrounded by people. Or you might literally be separated from others, perhaps through circumstances beyond your control. Isolation can feel like a curse, like you've been abandoned by the very world you're trying to understand. But in truth, isolation is another gift. It's an invitation to go within, to stop looking for validation, love, and meaning from the outside world. It's in isolation that we truly meet ourselves. Have you ever asked yourself, who am I when there's no one around to impress? When there's no one to validate my achievements, my worth, my existence? It's a terrifying question, but it's also a liberating one. Because when you stop relying on the external world to tell you who you are, you begin to discover your inner compass, your own sense of truth. You begin to connect with something greater than yourself, something eternal. God often uses isolation to remind us that we are never truly alone. We are always connected to the divine, always held in the arms of something far greater than we can comprehend. After isolation comes the third test: fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. Fear is perhaps the greatest obstacle to spiritual awakening, because it keeps us trapped in our comfort zones, in the smallness of our ego. Fear tells us, don't step outside, don't take risks, don't change. But here's the thing about fear: it's always pointing us toward the very thing we need to face in order to grow. Think about the last time you were truly afraid. Maybe it was a difficult conversation you were avoiding, or a decision you were too scared to make? What would happen if, instead of running from that fear, you leaned into it? What if you saw fear not as an enemy but as a guide, showing you exactly where you need to go? Fear is a test of courage, but it's also a test of faith. Can you trust that there's something greater on the other side of fear? Can you trust that God is leading you into the unknown for a reason? Fear is often a signal that we're on the edge of something transformative. It's the threshold we must cross if we want to experience true awakening. But the only way to cross it is to take a leap of faith. And that's where the real test lies, not in avoiding fear, but in embracing it, in trusting that the universe has your back, that you are being guided even when you can't see the path ahead. The next test God often gives us is suffering. Now, suffering is something we all experience at some point in our lives. It might come in the form of physical pain, emotional heartbreak, or even spiritual crisis. Suffering can feel like a dark, endless tunnel with no light at the end. It can make us question everything: our purpose, our beliefs, even our very existence. Why am I being made to suffer? We ask. What did I do to deserve this? But here's the paradox of suffering: it's often in our darkest moments that we find the greatest light. Suffering strips away all our pretenses, all the masks we wear, and forces us to confront the raw, unfiltered truth of our existence. It humbles us. It breaks down the walls of our ego and opens us up to something much deeper, much more profound. In the midst of suffering, we have two choices. We can either close off, become bitter, and resist what's happening, or we can surrender. We can allow suffering to soften us, to open us, to transform us. Have you ever noticed how much more compassionate and understanding people become after they've gone through hardship? It's because suffering has a way of expanding our hearts, of making us more empathetic, more connected to humanity and others. When we suffer, we realize that we are not alone in our pain. We see that suffering is a universal experience, something that connects us all at the deepest level. And in that realization, we begin to awaken to the truth that we are all one. But suffering is not the end of the journey. After suffering comes doubt. Doubt is one of the hardest tests because it strikes at the very core of our faith. It makes us question everything: our beliefs, our spiritual path, even the existence of God. Doubt can feel like a betrayal, like the ground has been pulled out from under us. But doubt is not something to be feared, it's something to be embraced. Doubt is a sign that we are growing, that we are expanding beyond our old beliefs. Doubt is a natural part of the spiritual awakening process. It's a sign that we are no longer satisfied with surface-level answers, that we're seeking something deeper, something more authentic. But in the moment, doubt can feel disorienting. It can feel like we're losing our way, like the very foundation of our lives is crumbling beneath us. Why does God allow us to experience doubt? You might wonder. Shouldn't faith be unwavering? But if faith were never tested, would it truly be faith? Here's the thing about doubt: it's not an obstacle to faith, it's the very soil in which faith grows. True faith is not blind, it's not about clinging to beliefs out of fear or habit. True faith is born out of the willingness to question, to wrestle with uncertainty, and to continue searching for truth even when you don't have all the answers. God gives us doubt not to weaken our faith, but to strengthen it, to purify it. It's through the fire of doubt that we burn away the false beliefs, the dogma, and the illusions that no longer serve us. But doubt can be excruciating. It can feel like we're wandering through a thick fog with no sense of direction. In those moments, it's tempting to give up, to fall back into old patterns, to cling to the familiar out of fear. But if we can learn to sit with our doubt, to allow it to be without rushing to resolve it, something profound begins to happen. We start to realize that doubt is part of the journey, not a detour. It's a necessary step in shedding the old so that we can make space for the new. And then, just when we think we've made peace with doubt, we encounter the void, the fifth test. The void is perhaps the most difficult test of all because it challenges us to confront the ultimate unknown. The void is the place where everything we thought we knew falls away, where we are left with nothing but emptiness, silence, and stillness. It's the dark night of the soul, the place where our old self dies so that something new can be born. The void is terrifying because it feels like annihilation. It's the place where we lose all sense of identity, where the ego is stripped bare, and we're left with nothing to hold on to. In the void, there are no answers, no clear paths, no comforting beliefs. It's just you and the vast emptiness. And in that emptiness, you are forced to confront the deepest truth of all that everything you thought you were, everything you've built your life around, is ultimately temporary. But here's the paradox: it's only by stepping into the void that we can truly awaken. The void is not the end, it's the beginning. It's the place where we finally let go of all the illusions we've been clinging to and open ourselves to the infinite mystery of existence. The void is where we come face to face with the divine, not as something outside of us, but as the very essence of who we are. Have you ever wondered what lies beyond the mind, beyond thought, beyond emotion? What happens when you stop trying to define yourself, stop trying to control your life, and simply allow yourself to be? The void invites us to surrender completely, to release all attachment to who we think we are and trust in the unfolding of the universe. It's a test of ultimate faith not in something external, but in the inherent wisdom of life itself. Stepping into the void requires immense courage, but it's also the most liberating experience you can have, because when you emerge from the void, you are reborn. You come out the other side with a deeper understanding of who you are, not as a separate individual, but as a part of the whole, as a manifestation of the divine. You realize that the void is not empty, it's full of infinite potential, full of life, full of love. But the journey doesn't end with the void. After we've passed through the dark night of the soul, after we've let go of everything we thought we knew, we encounter the sixth test: rebirth. Rebirth is the moment when we begin to see the world with new eyes, when we start to live from a place of deeper wisdom, compassion, and love. It's the moment when we realize that we are not separate from the divine, that we are not broken or incomplete, but whole and perfect just as we are. Rebirth is not about becoming someone new, it's about remembering who we've always been. It's about reconnecting with the part of ourselves that is eternal, that is untouched by the ups and downs of life. But rebirth is not an easy process. It requires us to let go of our old ways of being, our old habits, our old identities. It requires us to step into the unknown once again, but this time with a sense of trust and surrender. One of the most powerful lessons of rebirth is the realization that life is not about avoiding pain or discomfort, it's about embracing all of it. The light and the dark, the joy and the sorrow, the love and the loss. Rebirth teaches us that everything is part of the divine plan, that even our greatest challenges are opportunities for growth and transformation. When we stop resisting life, When we stop trying to control everything, we open ourselves to the flow of the universe, and that's when true magic happens. But rebirth also comes with its own set of challenges. After we've awakened to a deeper truth, after we've experienced the transformative power of the void, we often find ourselves faced with the seventh and final test: acceptance. Acceptance is perhaps the hardest test of all, because it requires us to fully embrace life as it is, without trying to change it. It requires us to accept not only the beauty and joy of life, but also the pain, the suffering, and the uncertainty. Acceptance is not about giving up or becoming passive. It's about recognizing that life is unfolding exactly as it's meant to, even when we don't understand it. It's about trusting that every experience, every challenge, every test is guiding us toward a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world. Acceptance is the ultimate act of surrender, the acknowledgement that we are not in control of life, but that we are always being guided by a higher intelligence, a divine force that knows exactly what we need in every moment. And what happens when we finally accept life as it is? We experience the profound gift of unconditional love. Unconditional love is not something we have to earn or achieve, it's our natural state of being. When we stop resisting life, when we stop judging ourselves and others, we open our hearts to the infinite love that has always been there, waiting for us to notice it. This is the final revelation of spiritual awakening, that love is not something we find outside of ourselves, it's who we are at our core. Unconditional love is the culmination of all the tests we've faced. It's the realization that we are all connected, that we are all expressions of the same divine source. It's the understanding that no matter what happens, no matter how difficult life may seem, we are always held in the embrace of love. This is the ultimate truth, that God wants us to awaken to the truth that we are love, we are light, we are one. So I leave you with this question. Are you ready to embrace the tests that life throws at you? Are you ready to let go of fear, doubt, and control, and step into the unknown with faith and trust? Because on the other side of these tests lies the greatest gift of all, the awakening to your true self, the realization that you are an expression of the divine, here to experience the fullness of life in all its beauty and complexity. Are you ready? After everything you've been through, the losses, the isolation, the fear, the suffering, the doubt, even the terrifying encounter with the void, you might think there's nothing left. And in a way, you'd be right. There's nothing left of the person you used to be. The old self has been stripped away, layer by layer, until all that remains is the raw essence of who you truly are. This is what rebirth feels like. Not some grand, triumphant moment where the universe applauds your transformation, but a quiet, subtle realization that you are not who you thought you were. You never were. Rebirth isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've been all along, underneath the masks, the roles, the identities that the world and you crafted over the years. But here's the thing, rebirth doesn't come with fireworks. It's not some overnight shift where you wake up and suddenly feel like a different person. It's more like waking up one day and realizing that the way you see the world has completely changed, and you can't even pinpoint when it happened. It's as if your eyes have been opened, and everything looks both familiar and entirely new. So what do you do with this newfound understanding? That's the real test, because even though you've been reborn, the world around you hasn't changed. You still have bills to pay, relationships to navigate, responsibilities to fulfill. But now, You're seeing it all through a different lens. The question is, can you stay grounded in that new awareness, or will you slip back into old patterns, old ways of thinking? This is why the next test is acceptance. It sounds simple, doesn't it? Accept life as it is. But in practice, it's one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation. It's not about giving up or being passive. It's about seeing things exactly as they are without trying to change them, without wishing they were different, without fighting against reality. Think about how much energy we waste resisting what is. We resist pain, we resist uncertainty, we resist the parts of ourselves we don't like. But all that resistance only creates more suffering. What if, instead of resisting, you just allowed things to be as they are? What if you made peace with the fact that life is messy, unpredictable, and sometimes downright painful? Acceptance is not about liking everything that happens. It's about realizing that everything that happens is part of a greater whole, a larger plan that we can't always see from our limited perspective. It's about trusting that even when things don't make sense, they are happening for a reason, and that reason is ultimately for your growth, for your awakening. But acceptance doesn't come easy. It's a test because it requires you to let go of control. And control is something we cling to with all our might. We want to control our circumstances, our relationships, our futures. We think that if we just plan hard enough, work hard enough, or pray hard enough, we can make life bend to our will. But life doesn't work that way. It never has. The more we try to control life, the more it slips through our fingers like sand. True freedom comes when we can let go of that need for control and simply allow life to unfold as it will. But how do you do that? How do you stop trying to control the uncontrollable? It starts with realizing that control is an illusion. You were never really in control to begin with. The universe has always been in charge, and it always will be. And when you finally accept that, when you truly, deeply accept it, something amazing happens. You stop fighting. You stop struggling. You stop trying to make life into something it's not. And in that space of acceptance, you find peace. You find freedom. You find the ability to love life, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. This leads us to the final test, unconditional love. Now I know that phrase gets thrown around a lot, and it's easy to dismiss it as a cliché. But let's break it down. Unconditional love means exactly what it says: love without conditions. Love that doesn't depend on circumstances, on behavior, on whether things go your way or not. It's love that simply is, regardless of what happens. Most of us spend our lives putting conditions on love, whether we realize it or not. We love people when they treat us well, when they agree with us, when they behave in ways that make us feel good. But the moment they don't, that love starts to fade. We do the same thing with ourselves. We love ourselves when we're successful, when we're happy, when we're ticking off all the boxes society says we should. But when we fail, when we struggle, when we don't measure up to our own expectations, that love quickly turns into self-criticism, self-doubt, even self-hatred. Unconditional love asks something radical of us. It asks us to love ourselves and others not for what we do, but for who we are. To love without expectation, without judgment, without needing anything in return. And this is the hardest test of all because it goes against everything we've been taught. We've been conditioned to believe that love is something you earn, something you deserve based on your actions, your achievements, your worthiness. But real love, divine love, doesn't work that way. It's not about earning or deserving. It's about recognizing that love is the very fabric of existence. It's the force that holds everything together, and you don't have to do anything to be worthy of it. You already are. You always have been. So what does it look like to live from a place of unconditional love? It means loving yourself even when you mess up, even when you don't live up to your own expectations. It means loving others even when they hurt you, even when they don't show up in the ways you want them to. It means seeing the divine in every single person, every single experience, no matter how difficult or painful. Unconditional love doesn't mean you let people walk all over you. It doesn't mean you ignore your own boundaries or needs. It means you recognize that everyone is on their own journey, just like you, and that journey is often messy and full of mistakes. But beneath all of that, beneath the surface drama and conflict, there's something pure and unchanging. That's what you're loving. Not the behavior, but the essence. And here's the wild thing about unconditional love: the more you give it, the more you receive it. The more you love without conditions, the more love you start to feel in every area of your life. It's like a well that never runs dry. The more you draw from it, the more it fills up. So here's the final challenge: can you love without needing to control? Can you love without needing life to go your way? Can you love yourself, others, and the world, not because it's perfect, but because it's real, because it's divine, because it's exactly as it's meant to be? You've been through the tests. You faced loss, isolation, fear, suffering, doubt, the void. You've been reborn. Now all that's left is to live from that place of deep, unwavering love. That's the final awakening. That's the gift God has been leading you toward all along. The tests aren't over. Life will continue to challenge you, to push you, to ask more of you. But now you know that every challenge is an opportunity to love more deeply, to accept more fully, to trust more completely. And that's how you awaken. Not once, but over and over again, in every moment, with every breath.